Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. A little bit of a later start for me this morning as it's actually very lovely and overcast right now in Helsinki, Finland, which is good for me because I fucking hate sweating. And today it's looking like a day of no sweat. Anyways, we do have a lot to talk about on Bitcoin because we did hit our short-term target from yesterday at 9,300-ish region. In fact, actually exceeding it quite a bit to 9,500. So I want to follow up on that. How does that change the short and medium-term timeframes? And other than that, yeah, let's look at the Krown Trading application, which can be found at app.krowntrading.net. It is, of course, free, so take advantage of it. We do have plenty of new things coming for it this week, by the way, and usually every week we do have another update for it. And you can check out all these cool little tabs at the top right here, plus, of course, the journals and whatnot, which I've actually been finding quite a bit of use for. Anyways, focusing more on the task at hand here, we do see that Bitcoin dominance actually ticked up about 0.25% from yesterday to today. I believe it was 65% flat yesterday, and open interest also still within that range, which is still, it takes on a dynamic interpretation right now. So realistically, I can still run with that former assumption, although it's looking like we're still just, we're nowhere near the top side of the long-term range or the bottom side of the long-term range right now. We're quite literally like right smack dab in the middle at this $9,500 target, $9,500 region, and so that's not really going to help for right now. Does suggest that we've still got some time to go within the greater formation, that is, meaning that the short and medium-term timeframes are going to be the ones that are more or less interesting right now. Higher-term timeframes unchanged essentially. Anyways, on top of that, fear and greed index ticking up a couple points from yesterday to today. All the other top end metrics, global market cap, altcoin market cap, pretty much steady. And other than that, I would like to invite anyone who's interested in strategy games, or especially Total War, onto my new gaming channel. The link will be in the description, or not description, but the comment section below. Of course, if you're not interested in such things, it's all good. Don't feel obligated to go check it on out. But if you do want to support that channel, you're more than welcome to. I could use some more friends over there. And so with that said, let's go look at some Bitcoin price action. So actually wanted to start off with the 2-day here today, because the 2-day and 3-day are actually closing on tonight's daily dodo, of which there are a few major things to be aware of. As long as Bitcoin is, especially above the 200 simple, this white moving average right here, which is actually rising at that 8,800-ish region, also protecting our higher lows for now, as long as Bitcoin's above there especially, but even above the 21 exponential moving average, I do still look at this as an overall uptrend. I mean, we have higher highs and higher lows along the way for the last few months, going all the way back to 4,400 in early March. So I do think that that's still to be respected. And looking at momentum oscillators for the 2-day, which again is closing today, we have a lot to be aware of here. So first and foremost, there is potentially hidden bullish divergence forming on the 2-day RSI. Only if Bitcoin can confirm a local low here. How would it confirm a local low here on a 2-day? Well, on a 2-day dildo time frame, because it is a relatively higher time frame in the context of Bitcoin price action, I do think that it is relevant to say that you can, or at least I've found that dildo formations, actually candlestick formations, dildo formations, whatever the fuck you want to call them, these things, colloquially referred to as candlesticks, perhaps, actually do hold a little bit of weight, on daily and above. Lower time frames than that, I actually don't find too much of a use for it in cryptocurrency. In Forex, yes. In traditional land, to a lesser extent, yes as well. But mostly works out in Forex, not as well in Bitcoin, unless if it's like a higher term time frame, of which the 2-day kind of counts. And this would be a hammerish type dildo, kind of like a semi-bodiless type dildo, which is indicative of a reversal. But how would you confirm a reversal? We need fall through to the upside on top of this. So first and foremost, we need to, at the very least, close above about 9,400 region, and then if it closed above the 10 simple at 9,600, that'd be quite obvious that this is going to set in a higher low. But I would not count on that. If it closed below the 21 exponential moving average, that would be an obvious signal that we are not doing that, and in fact getting ready for a nice move down well below 9,000, very, very likely. But for right now, looking good for a nice hammer close. Although lots of trading in the day left at 16 hours and 54 minutes and 18 seconds, so a lot can happen in that time. That is a fucking eternity in cryptocurrency land. But assuming that we were to close something like this right here, meaning somewhere above 9,400, then if we either could take out the high of this 2-day dildo, which is about 9,600-ish region, or if we went down to a lower term time frame, maybe go down to like a 12-hour and saw a close above about 9,550, that would also likely do it on the resulting on the resulting closure. That's what I'm looking for to kind of confirm this as a local low. If that were to happen, we would initiate hidden bullish divergence here. And with historical volatility percentile this low, it would kind of be like the stars aligning for a nice big move. In this case, I'd be looking for a test back up to the top side of this region, somewhere around 9,800 to maybe even $10,000. But still, the same sort of knowledge applies that we've been looking at for the last, like month and a half, 2 months now, that while I do think that Bitcoin would very likely test the top side of the range somewhere in this area right here between 98 and about 10,000, can't really get too excited for the big bad breakout to the upside until we actually get, at the very least, a 4 hour, or not 4 hour, 12 hour closure above 9,900. If Bitcoin can do that, that'll look pretty damn good for a resolution of this ascending triangle at that point to the upside. And so far, so good. It has been acting very, very well within here. The volume signature also works with this quite well as well. So, if it looks like one, it smells like one, it tastes like one, well, then it probably is one. And looking at this signature right here, it would suggest that we actually are very, very close to resolution on this formation, in fact, which would imply a resolution date actually within this next, when we're talking about statistics, statistically speaking, very, very likely somewhere actually even on this next 2-day, is this a 2-day? Yeah, 2-day or 4-day segment right here. So we're going to be about 75 to 80% full at that point. So fair enough. That would look pretty damn good and really look like a constructive formation for Bitcoin to build off of. And it would certainly put my bias boner to the upside, make me nice and erect there. But for right now, it's still a little bit too early to call it. And I would feel a lot more confident with confidence, the wrong word. I would feel a lot more secure. No, I would feel some type of way if Bitcoin could complete this closure on this 2-day dodo, especially above 9,500. That would start to look pretty damn good for at least playing out that next hidden bullish divergence drive to the top side of the range. Again, does that imply that we're going to have a resolution there? No, to the upside. That is to say. But putting all the puzzle pieces together, again, assuming that those assumptions actually come true later tonight on the closure, then this is really going to start to look like an ascending triangle. Volume signature would agree with it. Structure would agree with it. Higher highs and higher lows, and momentum oscillators all on the same side would look pretty damn good. Still just need a resolution above this blue box territory right here between about 99 and 10,000. Any sort of a 12-hour or above closure probably does it. Even a 4-hour probably does it at this point, as it is very, 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 very mature here. And realistically, looking at the historical volatility percentile read, we can expect that we are in an outlier as far as volatility goes right now, meaning that once it's contracted this much, it is set to naturally expand. And when the expansion phase comes, I'd really be looking for a test alongside this trend line over here as far as the greater contraction phase goes. So that's probably going to take a long time. That probably speaks more towards the macro perspective on Bitcoin. But for right now, a test up into this region on the on historic volatility percentile is going to correlate with pretty massive moves in price action. I mean, anytime that we even come from like a single digit read on the 2-day, we're talking about not just multi-$1,000s, we're talking about like percentage moves. The last time that we were this low was late February, which, let me remind you, that was all this move down from about 10.5 down to 4,400. It's not always going to be that great. Sorry, that's a little bit of an outlier of a solution right there, or a situation. Time before that we were this low was okay, maybe it's not so much of an outlier, because the last time before that was actually late November 2018, and we all remember this one going from 66 to 31 right here. Before that, we do have an example right here that did get a nice move. It was a multi-$1,000 move, but it wasn't like too crazy, going from about 75 down to 6,000. Yeah, so it was a $1,500 move, but not in alignment with the last few ones that we've seen. And then the time before that was this baby right here, going all the way from 10,000 down to 6,000. So again, very, 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 very true or tested results from that typically do incite pretty big, massive macro moves, actually, or at least a start of a macro move, of which I do think that we're kind of getting ready for that. Now, looking at the 2-day Stokes, they actually are coming down right now. So what would be needed for price action to close above in order to flip that momentum back up to the upside? Well, a close above about 98.73. So that is within the context of that blue box, about at 9,900ish region. So what does that essentially apply? It essentially implies that if Bitcoin does break back above, let's call call it 9,900 to be a little bit more conservative here. Very likely we're not just going to go to 10.5. We're probably going to see Bitcoin go to about 11,000 or 11,500, which actually is in line with the measured move from the ascending triangle that we see right on over here. It's still pointed towards about 11,100, and that would imply a higher high above this last trading high here in early February of 2020 at about 10,500. And then we can start to look at, our higher term timeframes like the weekly and judge off that what the next relevant levels are, of which we can see very easily here, just by the naked eye, that above this high right here, once again, we actually have an uptrend on the weekly, which we haven't had for about a year. And more importantly, as after that point, there's really not too much stopping you from the macro area at about 11,500, the same area that Bitcoin's been getting rejected at ever since January 2018, essentially right here, right here, right here, right here. From a volume profile perspective as well, big bad drop off, above that region too. So it would imply that we'd have a macro change of behavior here, which at that point, after 3 years of straight down, it's not straight down, but obviously a down market, going back to the $20,000 high, that would be, a welcome change of behavior for the laws essentially. So, Bitcoin still got a lot of work to do here, and I want to be very specific with the terminology that I use, because within those regions, a lot of things can happen, but above, once those criteria are met, that's when I think it's actually time to get legitimately excited, if there ever is a time to get legitimately excited. But for right now, Bitcoin is having a nice bounce off the 10 simple. While I didn't necessarily call a move down to the 10 simple, we were looking for a move to the downside of the range on those rising bottom lows, which was pretty fucking close, to be fair. I think I was saying 8,900. We got down to 80. Actually, we got down to 8,900, so fair enough. And now the reaction off the bounce has been good thus far. So what I need to see here from the lower term timeframes in order to keep on looking for short term continuation, which can set up that daily, 2-day, and 3-day for good closures, of which we didn't even look at the 3-day just yet, is I need to see the 4-hour maintain closures above 9,500. If it can do that, this is going to start to look constructive within this region and breaking it back above the short term high region. And sorry, I didn't even follow from yesterday's analysis. Remember, the bullish divergence from the 4-hour did play out. We saw the easy target met at about 9,300, and then that's actually where I got out of my position. For the people who held on for a little bit longer to 95, congratulations, good call there. And for the people, I actually don't even think that is the worst idea to play the position here, just because 9,500 is a very natural pivot, also going to be lined up with the 4-hour 200 simple, both of which are getting respected quite well. And I don't see any hidden divergences or downside continuation divergences in this case to be spoken about. Our last high was right here, or sorry, let's go back in time a little bit. That's not really high right there. That was your last high right there. So yeah, there's no hidden bearish divergence within the context of this move right here as well. So I don't really see any major glaring obvious issues with this. The obvious thing that I'd be looking for is another 4-hour closure below the 200 simple, which is rising up to that 9,500-ish level. So it's very, very tight margins here. But if we were to lose this area once again, I'd be looking for another move back down to about 9,300, 9,250-ish region and test this liquid zone right here. I don't have an opinion on whether it would break to the downside or not. I just have an opinion on if it does break, if we do see a 4-hour closure below 9,250 especially, or even just a wick below 9,250, very, very likely we'll come back down and test the bottom side support of this proverbial ascending triangle. At that point, it's going to not look so much like an ascending triangle anymore and probably take on a much more distributive look overall. Anyways, momentum oscillators on the lower term timeframes are actually pointed healthily erect to the upside. However, this is to be considered, as we do see a nice trend line forming in from the last major high in late May. That was this high right here, getting this high, and potentially this high if this does turn around once again. So I would use this as a nice short-term pivot. That means that if Bitcoin does head back down below this level and close below there, especially below the 200 simple on the 4-hour, I would at the very least look for a test back down to 9,250-ish region, and then we get to play the game of is this the last lower high before the big bad drop, or is this another opportunity? Well, to put this in perspective, let's look at the momentum oscillators here, which are actually going to remain to the north side on this next closure as long as we're above 91.50 on a 4-hour closing basis. That is quite somber in there. So 4-hour momentum will actually naturally remain to the upside. 4 hour, we already looked at that. No, we don't need to cover that again. Let's go over to the 3 hour. The 3 hour also maintaining a couple nice closures and retests after clearing back above the 200 simple and 200x benchmark average, which I do like. Coming back and filling the last three hour dildo. By the way, if you are in the TA program and you haven't watched the newest video in the bonus section, this would be a damn good example of a nice and easy backfill right there. Again, only to be used on the first pass and only to be used for a very, very modest scalp. Yeah, that's the word that I want to look for. Now, the 2 hour is a little bit more problematic to me, just because the 2 hour does look like he's getting rejected from the 200 simple here, and 2 hour momentum actually will turn down here unless if Bitcoin price action closes back above 9530-ish region. So the 9500 area is a little bit fraught with peril right now. So if Bitcoin can hold that, especially on these time frames, it's going to look a little bit better. But for what it's worth, on the 2 hour, if we start closing 2 hour dildos below about 9350, it's going to look like another move back down to below 9,000, probably test around that rising bottom trend line. Does it get another bounce? Probably does get another bounce on that trend line, which I think is now coming in around like let's see. Would be coming in around like about 9,000 actually, yeah. But then again, how many times is this thing going to bounce it without actually breaking? Well, it could do it a few more times. To be fair, we are getting pretty damn close. It's the 2-day historical volatility percentile read that makes me very very scared for whichever side gets tested next. Scared is the wrong word, but it really makes you think that the next test to one of these sides is going to be potentially the big break. At least if we're going off statistics, we're going off of volatility. It's likely. We could certainly say that at this point. It's very likely. Anyways, let's go over to the 12 hour right now. And we got some for the Bulas here as well. 12 hour Stokes crossing back up to the upside, rejecting the bearish control zone, but not confirmed just yet. Let's see what would be needed to confirm this back to the upside. And what do you know? 9350. So that actually really does help the short term analysis. We can now, or at least I can go off and now say that as long as Bitcoin is on a 4 hour closing basis, at the very least above the 200 simple, I think all is it's more or less fine. The second though that we start closing below the 200 simple, yes, I do think that things would come back down and test around 9350. If 9350 is lost, that's when the 12 hour momentum turns back onto the downside, and I do think that we look for a backfill on this dildo right here actually, funnily enough. So again, would that constitute a break to the downside? No, but it would start to look like this is a downtrend emergence. We would have lower lows and lower highs, this being your next lower high in a series of 1, 2, potentially 3 lower highs, which does make a trend, to be fair. So my point is that Bitcoin is kind of getting very, very close to the do or die scenario right here, where it's going to be forced into a decision. Keep in mind though, like I said, momentum oscillators are up here, and it will remain to the upside as long as we're closing 12 hour dildos above 9350. The next one coming in 4 hours and 41 minutes. 4 hour RSI also bouncing off of, back above the exponential as well, which is more or less good. No divergences to be found here either though. So fair enough. Don't really have too much to make out of that. Historical volatility percentile looks like it's actually still more or less contracting. The moving average on this is still maintaining a negative slope, even though we are getting some nice spikes up. So I look at that as just a read to be taken into context of something greater, which we're just not seeing on this time frame. So it's better to use probably actually the high, like the much higher term time frames, like the 2-day, or the very low term time frames. Funnily enough, they do seem to line up with each other rather well. Looking at the daily right here, we see something relatively similar to the 12 hours. So we can now start to make some confluences between these two. 12 hour momentum, daily momentum will cross back up to the upside as long as we're closing daily dildos above 9250. I think that's a little bit too generous to the downside range. I think 9350 probably gets that just as well. And looking at daily Stokes, you could see that we actually are following a nice trend line here, which we would be hitting right here. And assuming that today's daily dildo closes anywhere above 9250, I think it was, we will see this naturally cross back up to the upside. And that would essentially be forming a falling wedge within the daily Stokes here, which I don't trust formations on Stokes, by the way, but trend lines seem to work okay. Formations, I don't see them play out pretty much ever. Of course, daily Joule sell signal has that more or less played out here. Well, if we close below 9250, probably not. Probably not. Probably not. But assuming that we close above 92.50, then yeah, I'd say the medium term damage is likely done here. Daily historical volatility percentile, similar to the 2-day, is very much contracted as well. We are at an outlier as far as this goes. This strongly suggests that we're going to see a pretty big move relatively soon, multi-$1,000 move. If it's to the downside, similar REITs for that have produced like 50% downs in the past, as we looked at, and to the upside, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think that we've seen like a legitimate percentage based off of it, but to the upside, multi-$1,000 moves typically what we're looking at. So Bitcoin is setting up here, extremely likely. And from a major movement average perspective, this is still a bullish take on the major movement averages. Where it starts to turn around is below the 55, which, by the way, is actually crawling its way up to above 9,000 at about 90.50-ish region right now. So that's a good pivot point as well. And realistically, on a daily closure, we really don't want to see these higher lows being taken out right here now that they've kind of been solidified, especially after that last wick to the upside yesterday. That you really want to see that operate as your last low. To come back down is not gonna imply confidence by the bigger players here. Okay, cool. We already looked at the 2-day. Let's go look at the 3-day. 3-day Stokes coming down, and they're going to be coming down pretty hard as long as we are below about 10,200. But I don't really trust them as much on the 3-day in this region. No, I shouldn't say that. You always have to kind of take it at face value, I suppose. But my point is that, in traditional markets, when you see a Stoke reading like this, where it kind of gets stuck at the top, that's actually indicative of a strong trending move. And right now, we do have an uptrend on the 3-day, right? There's your low, higher low, high, higher high, and potentially another higher low right here. Here's what I can say about the 3-day. If the 3-day closes above the 10 simple, that red moving average right around a little bit above 9,500 today, 9,550 actually to be exact, extremely likely this is going to be your next higher low. And I would be looking for then the 2-day hidden bullish divergence to play out. Do we have hidden bullish divergence on the 3-day is the real question. We do not. We do not actually, no. So fair enough. Interesting. So it wouldn't be as interesting from that perspective, but overall you can kind of see how all the dominoes are lining up right now. It's very likely going to be decided, by the end of this week, at least for that next short-term move, whether it's going to be to the top side of the range of 9,900 or the downside of the range at about 8,950, 9,000-ish region. And right now it's looking like the Bulla is going to have a chance here. At least that's what I'd be looking at, especially as long as the 4 hours closing above the 200 simple. I'm not saying that it can't come to the downside. Of course it can. Of course it can. And dashing on Moon Boy's dreams is always a favorite pastime of many people, including myself. But at the end of the day, as long as the 200 simple is being held up on the 4 hour and being respected and being bought up by the bots and algorithms, I look for the path of least resistance to float us back up to about 9,800, maybe even 9,900-ish region. That's where the upside for the long term once again gets interesting. Now we didn't really talk about the downside on this one. But still the same things that we've been speaking about for the last few weeks apply. A move back down. Okay, so sorry, all over the place right now. Let me slow down. Apologies. Okay, so with the way that this is looking right now, if today's daily doodle closes below 92.50, extremely likely we will come back down and test around 89.50 or 9,000, wherever this rising trend line comes in around at that point. What we can say about that now, though, is that because yesterday's low is your proverbial higher low, and you really want to operate off that in the more immediate structure to carry on those short-term momentums, putting all the puzzle pieces together here, to come back down into this region, while it probably would bounce again, maybe a few $100, it would very likely just be that a bounce before getting ready for lower prices. However, technically speaking, I'd still want to see a close below this area right here. And now that we have, before looking for the next big downside move, and what's interesting about this right here is that because of yesterday's low that we set in, we can now use that as a continuation point, which is about 8,900. And that means that instead of just waiting for a close below 8,900, a wick below 8,900 likely does force the downside here, of which the downside measure move is still very much relevant all the way down to about 7,500-ish region, which is actually directly in line with the 0.5 Fibonacci tracement and also our long-term historical breakout and breakdown and accumulation zone from late 2019. I'm referring to this area right here, and then this big big breakout right here, all historical and all relevant. So I do like all of those reads for targeting this area more long term, I suppose. I do think that there would very likely be a bounce at the 382 fib at about 81.50. That's also going to be the daily 200, usually going to be bought up just because a lot of bots now is going to be programmed to be closing their positions there. However, I don't think that things would stop there. If Bitcoin breaks south below 8,900, essentially, I strongly believe we'll be at the very least coming down to 7,500. Personally speaking, I actually do think that the 6,900-ish region right here, right around the 618 fib, is very likely to get tested as well. Below 6,900, that's where the macro turns to the turns to the macro bearish, essentially. Just like above 11,500 is a change of behavior macro to the bullish side, the same logic applies for 6,900 to the downside. At first pass, I'd look at this as an opportunity, just as I look at 7,500 as an opportunity, and it's kind of the same thing that I'm looking at for traditional markets as well. Below this area is when, well, you not only have another macro lower high, but now you have a series of lower highs, and this is starting to look like potentially even a massive descending triangle formulating over a long period of time. Remember, this is what the chart actually looks like. This is the linear scale, and yes, linear scale should be used by this point actually on Bitcoin, as we have established a pretty obvious trading range between about 11,500 on the high side and about 4,000 on the low side. That is very well documented now on Bitcoin. So is it going to go into the death throes of the Republic, where it just kind of has more and more anemic bounces off this region if we were to break to the south side over time below 6,900? Yeah, I do think so, actually. I think that would be kind of like the death sentence, really. Although it still take, maybe it could take, decades really to play out, but nothing truly dies anyways. I mean, Beanie Baby still fucking trade to be fucking BitConnect still trades, for the love of God. But let's go check out traditional markets right now, because traditional markets have been the key ingredient. And what do you know? Okay, so we came down to our 93.50-ish area that we spoke about coming into this week and bouncing off of it valiantly right now. I have zero reason to be bearish on traditional markets as long as we're above 9,600-ish region. If 9,600 does get destroyed to the downside, I look for another opportunity at 9,100. That's kind of where the buck stops for me, at least for long-term action. But so far, this is a very, very, very good response. And it's basically coming off the backs of the Fed saying that they're going to prop up this market no matter what. So you can be like Peter Schiff and keep on talking about the inevitable doomsday of these markets, or you can get on the side of the winners for the last, like 20 years. And in that case, strong trends continue or typically continue. And in this case right here, this is a very strong reaction off the 10 simple. We spoke about coming down to the 10 simple. It didn't quite get all the way down there. I said 9,300, it got to 9,350. Close enough is close enough. And like I said, if it does come back down and take out this current low, I'll be looking for another opportunity, likewise at about 9,000 and 9,100-ish region. Long term, like I've been saying, while we were looking for a pullback coming into the end of this month, being June or maybe even July, I think that's what we just saw right here. And if this weekly closes anywhere above 9,800, I'd be very bullish, looking for new all-time highs coming into the next coming months. And that was the opportunity, just like we spoke about. And I feel like I'm coming off as maybe a little bit arrogant when stating this, but I just feel like there's been a lot of people, talking about the other side of that trade. And to me, that was very indicative of that sort of like weird group think that people have, that it's like everyone's bullish, so I'm bearish, or everyone's bearish, so I'm bullish. Well, the thing is that everyone quite literally is bearish, because they're all talking about fucking, the political situation in the U.S., the monetary situation in the world, the coronavirus, all that good stuff. To me, that if you are going to be the counter trader, that was the time to do it. Same thing on SPY riding over here as well. As long as we're above the 21 at 29.50-ish region, I have no reason to be bearish on this. We didn't quite get down to my downside target of 285 region, but close enough is close enough, and the reaction very good here. I think NASDAQ is the one to follow though, because it's leading, and like I said, any close above 9,800, and I'd be looking for new all-time highs. What does that mean for Bitcoin? Two assets that have been essentially correlated for Well, for the history of Bitcoin, at least. By the way, Bali's actually he's actually just sent me a new correlation coefficient and correlation chart overall. I'll be presenting that probably at the end of the week once I've had some time to digest it myself, as I like to give myself a little bit of time to really like work with these tools. But you know, we can go over another one of those things again. More or less, I would imagine that the results are going to be relatively similar with just a new kind of lens of perception looking at it. But more importantly, if you know, if we do see strength continue on in Nasdaq and SPY to a lesser extent, we can very likely expect that Bitcoin is going to break above that $9,900 or $10,000 region, which they're all kind of lining up with to begin with. Looking at the daily right here. Yeah, ranges are pretty set. 9,600 the downside, to the upside 10,000 essentially. But I think the weekly close is going to be a little bit easier to judge. So it's probably going to be a little bit of waiting here for traditional markets, but so far so good. Massive hidden bullish divergence on that last low as well, which is probably, well, the easy part's already played out on that. So I don't think that there's too much to say about it other than that. Gold, let's go check out gold. Gold also acting, yeah, I still look for some upside here in gold. As long as it's above the 10 simple on the weekly, I would still remain long-term bullish on it. The second that it breaks below there, though, I'd be looking for probably a move back down to like low 1600. So I still stick with what I've been saying for there. I'm still overall bullish on it. Just having a nice little consolidation here, and I'd respect on a daily closure the 1690 region, just basically this last prior higher low right here. Okay, what else do we want to look at? Let's go look at Bitcoin dominance. I'm curious how that one's shaping up. So we did see a little bit of movement there. Looks like accumulation right here. I don't know how you accumulate on a dominance chart, but if I did have to call it, I do think that this does turn into a higher low, especially if Bitcoin does, you know, if you are going to be bullish on Bitcoin, you're probably going to be bullish on the dominance chart, which is probably going to be good enough to get it back up to 69.5%. But again, I'd rather just focus on Bitcoin price action because it's just easier and more documentable right now, more tradable as well. Let's see. What about Mr. Buterol? How's he reacting? Okay, so we got the bounce off of the 215 region. Mr. Buterol looks a lot more potentially bearish than Bitcoin. This does look like distribution here. It does look overall weak, but the thing is if Bitcoin marches its way to the top side of the range here, or sorry, more importantly, breaks out of the top side of the range here, do I expect Mr. Buterol to not follow? No, of course not. But it's in a precarious place because if it does confirm another high here by coming back down and closing at the very least a daily below 215, it's gonna be another macro lower high, and well, there's your dead heartbeat chart. And don't laugh at them just yet, you Ripple motherfuckers, because you're next. This one looks actually very, very nasty here. But again, the same logic applies. If Bitcoin moves up, they're probably going to move up as well. If Bitcoin moves down, they're going to get absolute bouquet cream pied in the face. And that's your positive message of the day. EOS. I'm curious what this one looks like. It looks like Ripple. But EOS has new technology. But Neo. But Tron. But Monero. Actually, Monero doesn't look as bad as the other ones. Actually, Monero can pull through here, especially if Monero closes any weeklies above 67.5. Looks good, actually. Or I wouldn't say looks good. Nothing. No chart like this looks good. You should not use good, but at least for short-term, medium-term, move back up, maybe all the way to like $90. If that were to happen. What about Litecoin? Oh, you. I won't complete that sentence because that's the one that gets you banned from YouTube, apparently. Okay, let's go check out Dixie. I haven't looked at this one in a while. Are we setting another higher low here? I don't know. No, I don't have a good read on this one. I don't have a good read on this one. Let's go look at some Forex though. What about euro dollar? Euro dollar, so interesting. I think that is still trying to turn the corner here, but it's going to be slow, move slow and steady. Probably still gets another move back down to 112 region, and then I look for that to rally off if this is going to reverse. Probably in next month, whatever next month is, maybe July, I think. I don't know. I don't know the months, man. Who needs fucking months? Time is an arbitrary concept, my friends. Anyways, this video is already 33 minutes long. Jesus, man. So yeah, let's wrap this bit. Or sorry, let's go look at probabilities first, and then we'll wrap this bitch up. Okay, so probability chart right here. Let's look at what the probability of closing above 95.50 is, because remember that is relevant for the next, for constructing a higher low and confirming that. I'm curious what that would show. It would actually show the daily has about a 39% chance to do that today. That's obviously very, very high compared with the downside at 89.50, 13.5%. That's actually decently high, to be fair. But here's the thing: the low side of the range should really be about 92.50. That's where problems are once again implied on the short and medium term. That shows a 34.5%. So still, the upside target probability is a little bit higher. Let's look at a 12-hour. 12-hour showing 36 versus 27 for the same areas, and let's go look at the rings and the slope of the rings on this baby as well. Hello, sir. Oh, by the way, Bali's momentum oscillator, or sorry, Bali and Pig's momentum oscillator here, actually getting it pretty damn well on the low. Well, no, we'd actually had quite a bit lower than that, but divergence was created there. Yeah, this one's still same sort of thing. Rings are squeezing slightly to the upside, so again, a little bit of a slight upside bias boner there. Let's go back into spot price or sorry, not spot, but just our regular charts right here. Let's keep it nice and simple. Okay, so here's what I can say. As long as Bitcoin's closing 4-hour dildos, especially above the 200 simple, I do look at momentum still to be gained to the upside here. Bitcoin closes below, then we're in kind of like a weird range here between this 9,500 and this 92.50ish region right here. Could I use 93.50 just as well? Probably yes. And in fact, for the interest of just kind of making these ranges a little bit more reduced and actionable, I will move it up. So I'll use 93.50. I do think that is relevant, to be fair. So if Bitcoin does break back down below the 200 simple, is that the death sentence? No, but very likely we will test 93.50 after that. It's a $150 move. It's not really that tradable for myself. But this is the area where things start to change back around to the downside, driving all those momentums on not just the lower term timeframes, but also the higher term timeframes as well to the downside. And I would at the very least look for a test back onto this trend line here, which is coming in between about 89.50 and 9,000 at the current price action. That would look bad in and of itself, but it doesn't necessarily constitute a break. Either a wick below our current low at 8,900 or a 12-hour closure. Or sorry, even a 4-hour closure below like 9,100 probably does it, because that would be a 4-hour closing low as well. I mean, all of that's not going to look good. I'd really want to see this area broken, essentially. Just a wick below 8,900 probably does it by this point, because that's going to destroy this as a higher low as it is right now. And with historical volatility percentile suggesting that a big move is coming sooner rather than later, I would rather err on the side of that. By the same token, as long as Bitcoin's above the 200 simple, I do think that it's just going to kind of float its way upwards and onwards. Perhaps, after today's 2-day closure up to the 98 to maybe even 9,900 level right here. Same sort of logic still applies though for this upside breakout as far as targets go. So realistically, I don't think that too much is going to actually happen during the intraday action here, unless if things actually come to the downside. It's really setting everything up for the daily and 2-day to potentially confirm a higher low here, of which daily, 2-day, and 3-day are all closing later tonight. And that would be, and if this does confirm here as a higher low, I'd look for that hood and bullish divergence to bring it back up to the top side of the range. And then, we're in the fuckboy range once again. So I'm going to leave it off there. I am going to go run some errands, and I would like to wish you well, man. Would like to, or girl, or other genders that exist in this world nowadays. They, them, it, ziri, zer, her, fucking furries, whatever the fuck you want to be called, I'll call you that. Just don't get mad at me if I don't get it right on the first pass, because, well, there's a lot of things to think about in the day, and that's, well, fair enough. Whatever. Fuck it. Have a good day, whoever you are, sir. Or ma'am. Or fuck, I did it again. Ah, shit, man. Well, I'm getting canceled. Oh, well. Good. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.